At least the buffet was good, Helen sighed, even if the meatballs were made of soy. As they sat back on their balcony, the familiar bickering resumed, a comforting rhythm that had defined their lives for 2 decades. They hadn't found their inner spark, but as Stanley reached over and grudgingly handed Helen his half-empty beer, they found something better. They found each other. Again, for the 1000th time. Stanley, Helen said softly, "Yeah, you're still a rock. And you're still a cactus. Helen, now pass me the racing form." The Ropers were back, and Santa Monica was safe. Three's Company, The Chronicles of Apartment 201, a novelization by Gemini. Prologue, The Golden Coast Misadventure. The sun hung low over Santa Monica, casting long, amber shadows across the Pacific Coast Highway. It was the mid-1970s, an era defined by the rhythmic thumping of disco bass lines, the rustle of polyester bell-bottoms, and a shifting social landscape that often felt like a grand puzzle with half its pieces missing. The air was a thick cocktail of salt spray from the Pacific and the faint, sweet scent of jasmine blooming in hidden courtyard gardens. In the heart of this vibrant chaos stood a modest, 2-story stucco apartment building. It was the kind of place that had seen better days, with ivory paint peeling around the window frames like sunburnt skin. The building was managed, or perhaps policed is the better word, by the indomitable, if somewhat perpetually annoyed, Stanley Roper. Stanley was a man whose world was framed by the rigid morality of the post-war era, a man who viewed the youth of 1977 with a mixture of profound suspicion and weary resignation. Apartment 201, located on the 2nd floor, was more than just a living space. It was a sanctuary of secrets and a stage for the absurd. Inside, the decor was a chaotic blend of macrame plant hangers, beanbag chairs, and floral patterned curtains. Jana Wood, a pragmatic and sharp-witted florist with a bob haircut that never seemed out of place, provided the grounding force of the household. Beside her was Chrissy Snow, a blonde secretary whose innocence was as vast as her heart was gold, though her logic often took a scenic route through the impossible. But the third piece of their domestic puzzle was the most complicated of all: Jack Tripper. Jack was an aspiring chef with a gift for physical comedy that bordered on the supernatural, and an even greater gift for getting into trouble. To the world, or at least to the prying eyes of Mr. Roper, Jack was a man of refined tastes, a non-threatening presence whose alleged orientation ensured the virtues of the 2 young women he lived with remained untarnished. This lie was the cornerstone of their lease, a fragile, high-stakes agreement that allowed them to afford the skyrocketing Santa Monica rent while keeping their grumpy landlord at bay. But life in apartment 201 was never as simple as a single deception. It was a whirlwind of misunderstandings, close calls, and the kind of fierce loyalty that only develops when you're 3 months behind on the gas bill and sharing a single, temperamental bathroom. Chapter 1: The Niece and the Negotiator. The morning in the Roper household began not with the chirping of birds, but with the rhythmic, agonizingly slow scraping of an emery board. Helen Roper sat at the small kitchen table, the linoleum surface worn smooth by years of lukewarm coffee and cold arguments. Her floral robe, a vibrant explosion of pink and orange hibiscus, was a stark contrast to the drab, olive green wallpaper that Stanley refused to replace. Helen was filing her nails with a ferocity that suggested she was trying to vent 20 years of marital frustration onto her cuticles. Each stroke was a silent protest against the monotony of her life. "Be quiet, Helen," Stanley grumbled, shuffling into the kitchen. He was clutching his bathrobe closed, his face still creased from sleep. "You're gonna wake Karen." Helen didn't even pause. "Filing my nails is gonna wake up your niece. It's not the filing, Stanley, it's the breaking. Every time you break a nail, you swear loud enough to wake the dead." "Oh, so that's what got you up." Stanley ignored the jab, heading straight for the percolator. His knees. Karen had flown in from New York just the day before. To Stanley, New York was a den of iniquity, and he felt the heavy mantle of protector of the family virtue weighing on his shoulders. He had promised his brother he would watch over the girl like a hawk, which, in Stanley's mind, meant keeping her isolated from anything that possessed a Y chromosome. "Just hold it down," Stanley whispered harshly, leaning over his coffee. "She's exhausted. She flew across the country. You've heard of jet lag, haven't you? Heard of it?" Helen smirked. "I married it. I've been living with a man in a permanent state of lag for 2 decades. She's adjusting to a new time zone," Stanley insisted, ignoring her. "She's adjusting to living the life of a cloistered nun," Helen retorted, finally setting the file down. "You never let her out of your sight. You're more like her jailer than her uncle. Honestly, Stanley, the poor girl is in the prime of her life. Didn't you take her to Disneyland? Didn't you take her to the museum? Didn't you walk her to the end of the pier until her feet bled? And then, to top it all off, you spent every night regaling her with stories about your experiences in the war. No wonder she's sleeping. She's trying to escape the boredom." Stanley bristled, his chest puffing out beneath his robe. "I am taking good care of her. This city is crawling with freaks and weirdos and perverts. I'm the only thing standing between her and a life of ruin." Helen leaned back, a knowing glint in her eyes. "Oh, I wasn't talking about your friends, Stanley. I just hope you don't make a crack like that in front of Karen. You'll give her the wrong idea about her favorite uncle." As they bickered, a desperate thought began to take root in Stanley's mind. He needed a way to get Karen out of the house without risking her falling for some long-haired surfer or a guitar-playing hippie. He needed someone safe, someone harmless, someone neutered by circumstance. He looked toward the ceiling, his eyes following the faint sound of footsteps from apartment 201. Wait a minute, Stanley said, a rare spark of inspiration lighting up his tired face. What if she met the kids upstairs? You know, the Andrews sisters, Patty, Maxine, and what's his name? Jack. Helen raised an eyebrow, genuinely surprised. You think Jack would be